and welcome back to Growing Older and Wiser. I'm Krista Gibson. Today's topic is a huge one, dementia. Yours, mine's, somebody else's. Now, this is an enormous topic, and I'm not going to get into the science of it. I'm not going to get into the cures or the medications, because all of that is much better handled with a physician. Even go to Mr. and Mrs. Google and look up and see. There's so much, and it changes so rapidly right now as they're learning more and more. First, I want to talk about yours and my potential dementia. As we get older, everybody I know worries about it, or maybe worry is too strong a word, but they're aware of it. And when they start forgetting things, they go, oh God, I've got Alzheimer's. Oh no, I've got dementia. So here's something I learned when I got my gerontology certificate, and when I worked with the Alzheimer's Association, and when I worked with a lot of people with dementia, and that is this. One of the signs of dementia isn't so much the forgetfulness. For instance, let's say you don't know where you left your car keys. That happens to a lot of us many times. I don't know where my car keys are. Not knowing where your car keys are is a normal aging thing. As we age, we tend to get a little forgetful. I like to say it's because the file folders are so full, we have to dump some things to make room for other information. Dementia is when you don't remember what the keys are for. There's a huge difference to, oh, I've lost my car keys, to looking at the car keys and going, I don't know what these are. So as long as it's just that you're losing, remembering a name or a date or a phone number, don't let yourself get overly concerned about that. There are lots of things you can do to help keep your memory better and more active. Lots of people play Sudoku. Some people play, that word game Wordle. Some people do puzzles. I like to tell people the best thing I've learned and seen in other people is learn something new. One of the ways, now dementia has physical reasons and behavioral, diet, exercise, all of those things. And again, I'm not going to get into that to any degree. But if you can keep your mind really agile and keep learning and growing, that seems to help keep you from getting quite so forgetful. It keeps your brain active. So learn a new language, learn to cook, learn to paint or draw, play golf, learn new golf games, go to new courses. There's just all these things that you can do that help to keep your brain active and agile. And most of all, don't worry about it. Have fun with your life. And, if you're starting to lose a few things or forget a few things, fine. Don't worry about it. It's normal. It's natural. Make a joke about it and move on. The other piece is make sure all your ducks are in a row. And by this, I mean things like your living will, your notice whether or not you want to, if you are incapacitated and your brain isn't working, do you want to be kept alive by artificial support? All of those things. Have all your documents and all those things in place so that should you become incapacitated due to dementia or anything else, people who love you will know what your wishes are and what you want to do. So that's the other piece of this, is planning ahead. When you do that, then you don't have to worry so much. It's all, I've written it down. They know what I want to do. Now I'm going to get busy and have a good time and live my life as best I can. So that's the part about us. Now the part about others. I know a lot of people whose parents have dementia, or their spouse, or their grandparents, or aunt or uncle, or just a good friend of theirs, and they're overwhelmed. Number one, do a little bit of research and learn a little bit more about dementia, kind of what's going on with it. There are different types that, again, I'm not going to go into. But when you're talking about somebody with severe dementia, where they don't really recognize you anymore, they aren't able to take care of their day-to-day needs in life. They're not able to think things through, all of that. They're sometimes disassociated from their environment. I'm going to give you some tips to deal with that, because I do know folks who are in that situation, and it's quite alarming. It's very upsetting. And I dealt with it a lot when I managed a dementia care facility, and I dealt with the dementia clients as well as their family members. And I was very successful with the dementia people. One of the most important things to do if you know someone with dementia, early stages or later, is number one, don't say to them, well, don't you remember, Mom? No, she doesn't. If she didn't, if she remembered, she wouldn't be upset. Never say to them, well, don't you recognize me? Once they start to lose, reality, and you're just so frustrated because, well, of course I'm your daughter, you should know me. No, she doesn't. You need to get into that person's world. That's number one tip I can give you, is get into their world. Do not try to force them into your world. It will not work. It's a physical thing that's happening to them. It's like telling somebody who's broken their arm, oh, go on, you can throw a baseball. Go on, you can hold that bat. They can't. They broke their arm. Same thing with people with dementia. It's a physical condition. And if you push them, all you do is frustrate them, anger them, make them feel bad about themselves, if that's a state they're capable of doing. So as much as you can, enter into their world, listen to them, pay attention to them. Because you're watching this, I'm assuming that you're on some sort of a spiritual path. One of the things I used to do that was highly successful is I would connect with their higher self, with their soul self, just mentally. Nobody else knew I was doing it, but I would get with the person. I would just make that connection. And they felt it. They felt it. They knew. On some level, they knew that I was on their side, that I was attempting to understand them. I was attempting to help them be happier. And one of the things, I'm going to tell you about two people I worked with, because whenever I share these stories with people who are dealing with a person in their life who has dementia, they relate and they really understand. The first story is about, I was called in the middle of the night because one of the dementia clients in our facility just absolutely, she was frantic. She kept bringing all her clothes out into the common area and a suitcase, and she just kept loading all her stuff up and walking around, and she was wanting to leave, and of course we couldn't let her leave. They couldn't let her leave, and they were beside themselves. They had been dealing with her for hours, and she was frantic. They were frantic. Please come in. So I went in. And the first thing I did was just get beside her and I used her name and I said, hi, tell me what's going on. I have to go home. I have to go home. I have to, my children need me. I don't know why I'm here. Well, of course, she was in her 80s and her children, she had one son. He was grown up. She didn't have children to go home to, but in her mind she did. And she was so frantic. So I said, well, look, let me help you. What are you trying to do? Well, I need to pack my clothes. I said, okay. I spent the next few hours with her packing her clothes. We did it together. And I helped her fold her clothes, put them in the suitcase, and then we'd move the suitcase, and she had to unpack them. I said, okay, I understand, let's unpack them. I just was with her, and what she needed to do, I did it with her. And I didn't argue. I didn't say you don't have young children. I didn't say you can't go home. I didn't do any of that. I was there as a pal to help her. Eventually she tired out. She said, I'm tired. I said, well, you know what? Why don't you go to bed and I'll keep an eye on your stuff and then we'll talk in the morning. She went to bed. By morning, she didn't remember anything that even happened. That was one of those cases where you just get into their reality. Is it frustrating? Yes. Is it sad? Yes. Is it difficult? It can be. But if you just get into it with them and into their reality, you can help them move through it. And then when they're safe and on the other side of the incident, then you can go and take care of yourself, which is another thing that's really important. The other situation I wanted to tell you about was we had a man there who, he was on the verge, well, he did get violent one time. He threw a mirror, which broke. But he was so frustrated because he had been an executive with a company, and he was like, I have to get back to work. They need me. They need to know what to do. They need to know what direction to go in. And again, frantic, broke a mirror, was starting to verge on being violent. So they called me in. I went, and again, I said, well, tell me what's going on. And so he did. He knew enough to know that I was the boss. And so once he saw me, he was like, oh, good, I can tell you, and you're going to do something. So I had him talk to me and explain things to me. Well, what we ended up doing was we brought in a spare desk we had that wasn't being used. We found a phone that wasn't hooked up and a calculator, got some pads and paper, and we created a desk for him. And that was his workspace. And he could go to work every day and take care of what needed to be done. Now, what was going on in his world and his mind, we didn't know. It didn't matter. He would sit there and he would make notes that didn't make sense. I would come over from the main building to where the dementia unit was. And I'll never forget, one day I came in. He said, I'm so glad to see you. He said, I need your approval. I said, okay. So we walked over to a window. He said, look out there. And he pointed at a telephone pole. And he said, you see that tree? And I said, yeah. He said, that tree has got to come down. I said, does it? He said, yes. I said, why? It's going to fall over. And he said, that one too. And so he was pointing to all of these things that there was no way. I did not say to him, that is not a tree. I never said that. To him, it was a tree, and that's all that mattered. I said, okay. I said, well, don't you have to do a lot of things to get that tree ready to come down? Don't you have to schedule your crew and a time? Oh, yes, says he. I said, well, look, why don't you go handle all of that? You get all those things set up, and then I'll come back later and we'll talk about what we're going to do. He went back. He was so happy. He went back to his desk and went to work. Went back there later in the day. He didn't even remember it had happened, but he was calm. Just get into their reality. And if you can't do it, because that's the other thing. I would have family members say to me, I don't know how you do it. How can you be so patient with these people? She just drives me crazy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know why? Because she's not my mother. He's not my father. If these were my family members, I would have history with them. I said, I have no history with them. So it's easier for me to enter their world because I don't bring any baggage. It's okay. And I said, yeah, I am a very patient person. That's something I've just learned over the years. But I said, so try when you're with your loved one, try not to be the daughter, not to be the son, not to be the spouse. Try to put some distance. Try to see them as the person they are today, the person they are now, instead of allowing your baggage to get in there. Because the truth is, that baggage is now yours. They no longer carry it. They're in another world. You deal with your baggage the way you know how to do it, but don't expect to do it with them. That isn't going to happen. It isn't. Those are my tips for you. And I know how difficult it is to either find out that you have dementia, which is very upsetting, or to find out someone that you dearly love has dementia. They're not easy roads to walk, but sometimes we have to walk them. And you've been through lots of difficult things in your life to get to the age that you are now. So I have full confidence in you that whether you're dealing with your own issues or that of people you love, that you have the strength and the knowledge and the ability to deal with it. And I hope that something I've said here today has proven to be even a little bit helpful to you as you walk this difficult path. I'll see you the next time round.